So are you really hitting every house up and down?
Yep.
Or did
There's a whole bunch
did
of
you
these.
find my fingerprints on a bike or something? Is there any information like that coming back on me? Well, you ain't heard much then of everything from me yet.
Oh,
have ya?
well,
I don't
I
know.
thought you
I don't
would.
want to hear.
Sorry.
You don't want to hear the rest of all this. Then why? You know. So
Keep right on going.
So you're gonna tell me that this is all under the guise of just checking every household,
Yep.
and you're not here for any particular reason, okay? And that, you know, I know you got an ongoing problem, but don't try to beat me into the position of being part of it, because I'm not. Just plain and simple. And I have witnesses that can tell you the last few days I've been here.
Yeah.
And how are you gonna kidnap somebody or take them on a motorcycle?
This was the serial killer when he was asked if he had seen the kidnapped girl, who in fact had already been killed by him. But he still acts innocent. It all went down on July 19th, 2016. Sierah Joughin and her boyfriend Kolosinski decided to go for a bike ride around Fulton County, Ohio. They both had their places, not too far from each other. That day, after their ride, they split up to head back to their own homes. But Sierah never made it back. Instead, she was snatched up, and what happened next was just brutal. She was kidnapped, tortured, and killed in the most horrific ways you can imagine. This is one of the most disturbing cases in the history of Ohio. In fact, this deeply disturbed and outraged many people in the community. At the time of her death, Sierah Joughin was a bright student at the University of Toledo. She was juggling her studies in human resource management with an internship at her uncle's metal stamping business. She was the kind of girl who knew how to balance books and life. And on that day, July 19th, 2016, just started like any other. Now, around 6:45 in the evening, Sierah decided to ride her bicycle back from her boyfriend's place. He, being the gentleman, accompanied her on his motorcycle. They were just cruising down the roads of their hometown, Fulton County, Ohio. As they approached County Road 6 near Metamora, things took a turn. It was here that they decided to part ways, him turning back towards his place and her pedaling forward to hers. That was the last time anyone saw her riding freely. The clock ticked away, and evening faded into night. Sierah should have been home by then. Her family started to worry when there was no sign of her. Her boyfriend tried to reach her by cell phone. Nothing. Not a ring. Not a text back. That silence was deafening. With their hearts in their throats, her family did the only thing they could: call the authorities. As the search began, every minute felt like an hour. The community rallied, and the police combed through the area. But as the night grew darker, so did the hope of finding Sierra safe and sound. It was a race against time, with every passing moment bringing a mix of dread and urgency. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the quiet fields near Metamora held a grim secret. Hours after Sierah Joughin vanished, her bicycle was found, ditched several rows deep in a cornfield, right where she was last seen. It wasn't just tossed aside either. It was clear from the get-go that something bad had gone down. The ground around was a mess, showing signs of struggle. Even more chilling, motorcycle tracks cut through the corn, weaving a path right through the scene. Now, the local sheriff's got the FBI on speed dial, right? So they jump in, pulling out all the stops to track Sierra down. They've got her Fitbit data and her smartphone signals to work with. Her phone, it pings a few miles away from her bike. But that clue fizzles out. Leads, dead ends, every one of them. And as the hours tick by, the stakes get higher. The community was on edge, offering up cash, big money. We're talking up to $100,000 for any tip that might bring her home safe. Right by where they found Sierra's bike, there are some items that just don't belong to her. A pair of men's sunglasses were tossed on the ground, and they've got traces of male DNA on them. There's also a screwdriver and a box of automotive fuses just lying there. None of it's adding up. In addition to that, a passing driver spots a motorcycle helmet off the side of the road, not far from the scene. That helmet had a bloody handprint smeared across it. The cops were piecing together this jigsaw, trying to make sense of the clues scattered like breadcrumbs. It's a race against time, and every little piece of evidence could be the key to cracking the case wide open, or just another heartbreak in a string of dead ends. After Sierah vanished, the local cops were on high alert, knocking on doors and piecing together any scrap of info they could find. That's when they bumped into a guy named Worley, just under 2 miles from the scene. He tells them a story about his motorcycle breaking down right in that area. Coincidence? Maybe. But then he mentioned he'd lost some stuff exactly like what was found near Sierra's bike. He even admitted to finding 2 bikes in the cornfield, saying he took one and it'd have his prints all over it.
Now, I had traffic issue with my bike here the other day. I dealt with it the best I could. I never saw anyone. I saw 2 bicycles. That's it. My helmet's gone. My fuses are gone. My screwdriver's gone, and my glasses are gone. So are you really hitting every house up and down?
Yep.
Or did you find my fingerprints on a bike or something? Is there any information like that coming back on me?
No.
Did you grab one of the bikes? General area, and then we had a meeting this morning. We got to expand.
Everybody has to go out.
That's why we got so many people, and I know the county, so we're splitting up deputies with other officers because they don't know.
So you're gonna tell me that this is all under the guise of just checking every household,
Yep.
and you're not here for any particular reason, okay? And that, I know you got an ongoing problem, but don't try to beat me into the position of being part of it, because I'm not. Just plain and simple. And I have witnesses that can tell you the last few days I've been here.
Yeah.
And how are you going to kidnap somebody or take them on a motorcycle?
But another local saw a van tearing through the area that day, and the plates were registered to none other than James Worley. Now, James Worley wasn't your average Joe. This guy had a history. By 14, he was already dealing marijuana. Fast forward to July 1990, Worley made headlines for a sinister act. He ambushed a young woman named Robin Gardner, who was just out riding her bike in White House, Ohio. He hit her with his truck, then got out, struck her on the head, slapped handcuffs on her, and pulled a screwdriver on her, threatening her life.
That victim, Robin, gave the jury details on a bike ride that she took back in 1990 in White House. Her testimony today and this police report explain the same crime. Robin told the jury she saw a red pickup truck and then was hit by that pickup truck, knocking her off her bike. And then she says she was grabbed by a man she says was James Worley.
He said, "Get in the truck or I'm going to kill you." And I didn't fight, but I struggled to get away and begged to get away.
Robin remembers fighting off Worley as he tried to handcuff her inside his truck, but she told the jury she escaped out of the driver's side door.
And I saw this man on a motorcycle that was stopped. And I ran up to him and said, "Please help me. This guy's going to kill me." And he just looked at me and wasn't sure what was happening. And I showed him my bike in the ditch, and I showed him the handcuffs that were still attached to my wrist.
Thankfully, she managed to escape and got picked up by a passing driver. Worley caught and locked up on abduction charges, sentenced to 4 to 10 years, but got out in 3, thanks to his own plea. You'd think that would have straightened him out, but no. In 2000, he's back inside for growing weed and having weapons while on disability. Got out in 2 years, again pushing for early release. Post-prison, he sets up a small gig at his place, getting licensed to transport trailers. Back to the night. As the cops dug deeper, things just weren't adding up with Worley. His past was too peppered with violence and shady dealings to write off as a mere coincidence. And with every piece of the puzzle, the tension in town cranked up a notch. When the cops decided to take a closer look at James Worley's place, they had no idea what they were about to uncover. They searched his barn and stumbled upon a chilling scene straight out of a horror movie. Hidden away, they found a green chest that seemed ordinary enough at first glance, but inside, it was a dark trove of horrors. They found several pairs of women's underwear, and not just that, some were stained with blood. Alongside, there were restraints and a carpet-lined freezer, also smeared with blood. This wasn't just creepy, it was downright alarming. And the discoveries didn't stop there. Worley's motorcycle had blood on it too. In his truck, the police found zip-tie restraints and a ski mask, tools of the trade for someone who meant serious extortion and kidnapping. The barn also held an inflatable mattress and a piece of duct tape, both marked with Sierah Joughin's DNA. But that wasn't all. Scattered across Worley's property were recording devices. It was clear this guy was watching, recording everything. Cell phone records threw in another piece of the puzzle, showing Worley hung around the abduction scene for nearly 2 hours the day Sierah went missing. The depth of his planning was horrifying. He'd even once told a therapist, after a previous conviction, that he was perfecting his method and planning to bury the next one. 3 days after Sierah disappeared, Worley was arrested. The charges? Abduction. The sheriff's office hinted at something more gruesome. Worley wasn't just a one-off criminal. He was a serial offender. Despite an exhaustive search of the property, no other victims were found. But the grim saga didn't end there. On the very day Worley was arrested, a few miles away from his property, the worst fears were confirmed. In a shallow grave along County Road 7, authorities discovered Sierah Joughin's remains. Her body was found intact, in a hog-tied position, with her wrists handcuffed and bound to her ankles behind her back. A large plastic toy was stuffed in her mouth, and a makeshift gag, and she was wearing an adult diaper. An autopsy revealed the cause of death as asphyxiation, likely caused by the gag. Mercifully, there was no evidence of sexual assault. The exact time of her death remained a mystery, but the official time of death was declared at 9 p.m. on July 22, 2017.
Authorities searching an area around County Road 7 tragically found what we believe to be Sierra's remains. Positive identification will be made through either fingerprints or DNA, but at this time, we strongly believe that this is Sierra. I want to express my heartfelt condolences to Sierra's family. At this time, our investigation will remain ongoing, but we do anticipate additional charges against the suspect.
Horrific time.
Sierra was a remarkable young lady with a contagious smile. She was a loving person who has touched many people in her life. We miss her, and we will always love her.
The gruesome details of her final moments painted a picture of the terrifying reality she faced, leaving a lingering shadow of sorrow and fear. On August 16, 2016, James Worley's fate took a serious turn. He was slammed with 19 charges, a laundry list of accusations that read like the worst of criminal activities: aggravated murder, kidnapping, felonious assault, abduction, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. They weren't taking any chances with him. He was thrown in jail, no bail, nothing. The community could breathe a slight sigh of relief, knowing he wasn't walking the streets anymore. At his arraignment, Worley stood up and threw out a plea of not guilty to all charges. He was denying the mountain of evidence stacked against him. The courtroom was tense. You could feel it in the air. This was just the beginning of what promised to be a heated battle. The prosecutors were not messing around either. They were gunning for the maximum, capital punishment for the aggravated murder charge. But this case was big, and justice wasn't going to come easy or quick. The trial faced delays, first in September 2017, then again in January 2018. Finally, in March 2018, the gears started turning. The courtroom at the Fulton County Common Pleas Court in Wauseon, Ohio, became the stage for this grim saga. Judge Jeffrey Robinson was at the helm, and you could tell he was not taking his responsibility lightly. This was a case that had shaken the community to its core, and it was his job to steer this ship through rough waters. The courtroom was packed every day as the trial testimony began. The prosecutors methodically built their case, piecing together the evidence and trying to make sense of the senseless. On the other side, the defense did what they could to sow doubt and poke holes in the prosecution's narrative, but the evidence was overwhelming. The community needed closure, justice, or something to make sense of the nightmare they had lived through.
There is a little bit of concern at this point. Last year, over 300 Fulton County residents were summoned for jury duty, many excused, and now the pool is dwindling. It's down to just over 50. And that has forced attorneys to be very selective in who they seat on this jury.
Sir, if you were sitting 2 seats over from me and you were the criminally accused in this type of case here, facing the possibility of capital punishment, would you want someone whose friend's girlfriend was the victim's best friend?
Attorneys want to seat a fair and impartial jury and need to make sure jurors will not use information they heard in the past to consider Worley's guilt or innocence.
I heard M&R Ready Mix took concrete to his house to bury evidence. You heard that?
I mean, yeah, that's
okay.
The rumor I heard, yeah.
We're seeking the truth, sir. We just want fair and impartial jurors. There's no right or wrong answer.
Now, investigation and court findings came out with some dark secrets. Worley, before the incident, was just chilling at home, cruising through some pretty dark corners of the internet. He was watching porn. But then he hits pause on his nasty pastime and heads out, his mind cooked up with the worst of plans. He spots Sierah Joughin biking down County Road 6, and that's when he makes his move. Out of nowhere, he smacks her on the head with his motorcycle helmet. This might have knocked her out cold because they found her DNA all over that helmet later on. Then, this guy, he drags her into a cornfield and just waits until the sun dips low and darkness creeps in. While he's out there, hiding in the corn with Sierra, he makes a call. Guess who he rings up? His brother. Tells him his bike's broken down. But the prosecutors are convinced he's lying right next to Sierra while he's making that call. Once the coast is clear, Worley hops back on his bike, rides the short stretch back to his house, and then, this is where it gets even crazier. He grabs his van and speeds back to where he left Sierra. Someone even sees him tearing down the road like a bat out of hell. He scoops her up, then takes her back to his barn. That's where the real horror show begins. He leaves traces of her blood-stained clothes all over the place. And then he ties her up, hog-ties her tight, and jams a plastic toy into her mouth as a gag. And if that wasn't sick enough, he shoves it in there so hard it breaks one of her teeth. According to investigation, he did all this knowing full well it would kill her. And it did. She suffocated because of that gag. But Worley wasn't done. He didn't just leave her in that barn. He had to make sure no one would find her easily. So he takes her body, drives it back out near his place, and buries her in a cornfield, just 2 feet underground. On March 28, 2018, the courtroom was packed tight as everyone waited for the verdict in James Worley's case. After less than 6 hours of deliberation, which felt like an eternity in that charged atmosphere, the jury was back. Worley was found guilty on 17 out of the 19 charges against him, including the big one, aggravated murder. The next phase was all about sentencing. In Ohio, it's up to the jury to weigh things out, whether any mitigating factors in Worley's background might lean towards a life sentence, or if the heinous nature of his crimes screamed for the death penalty. The courtroom turned tense as experts and witnesses took the stand to paint a picture of Worley's mind.
Members of the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, along with investigators from the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, testified to finding a cornfield Sierra was abducted from, showing the jury blood-stained evidence they collected like Sierra's sock and bike. The jury then learned it was a volunteer member of a search team who found Sierra's grave in another cornfield. And images of how Sierra was found in that grave brought a BCI investigator to tears.
She's got straw in her hair. She's got a brassiere, like a lace-covered brassiere, handcuffs, a rope, and an adult diaper.
That adult diaper, along with other items found in Sierra's grave, the state then worked to link back to Worley. Investigators testified to finding similar items like those diapers, tube socks, lacy undergarments, and bondage items in a green tub in one of Worley's barns.
Some large zip ties and what appears to be a ball gag.
But while these items, along with a long list of pornographic movies found on Worley's computer, were entered into evidence, the defense painted a different picture of the defendant. Worley's longtime friend testified Worley was interested in starting up a porn studio to generate money.
Okay, so he was going to run it as an LLC,
Something, yeah.
something like that.
Right.
Run it as a business, not as a hobby.
Yeah.
And the defense also making a case that the porn sites flagged by the state on Worley's browser was just a small portion of his online activity.
A criminal psychologist, Dr. John Fabian, stepped up for the defense, suggesting that Worley's actions were driven by sexual sadism linked to a fetish disorder. He diagnosed Worley with sexual paraphilia disorder and flagged multiple mental health issues. The defense was clearly trying to find some kind of understanding, maybe even a shred of sympathy for Worley. But the prosecution wasn't having it. They argued hard, pointing out that Worley had a pretty average upbringing and knew darn well the difference between right and wrong. They made it clear the sheer brutality and calculated nature of his crimes far outweighed any psychiatric labels he might carry. During the penalty phase, the air in the courtroom was thick with anticipation. Prosecutors dropped another bombshell: audio recordings between Worley's sister and a private investigator. In those tapes, his sister hinted that Worley might have been involved in more dark stuff, including suspicions of him killing a prostitute back in 2000, and another mysterious woman from the 1970s he called the love of his life. When the sentences were handed down, they were hefty. 11 years for kidnapping, 8 for felonious assault, 11 months for possessing criminal tools, and 36 months each for tampering with evidence and having weapons under disability. Then, the big one, death row. Starting April 19, 2018, Worley has been cooling his heels on death row at the Chillicothe Correctional Institution, his life now a countdown.
Here's my thing. You will be killed, okay? You're gonna be killed.
I will be killed.
Yeah, you have a death sentence in 2025, okay? So let me just say
I
this.
doubt if that happens.
Okay, but maybe you can stop that. You're running out of appeals. If you give
Oh,
a
that
name of
process
someone
will outlast my life.
maybe if you give the name of someone who helped you.
There was no one that helped me because I'm not involved in it.
But Worley's story didn't end with the sentencing. His lawyers kept fighting, filing motions, claiming everything from the government's failure to prove their case, to his mental illnesses, to incompetent counsel, and even jury issues. They argued that the jury was biased, too connected to the community, the victim, or the case to be fair. Each appeal brought delays upon delays. His execution was pushed from 2019 to an uncertain future. But in the end, the appeals ran out. The Ohio Supreme Court wasn't moved. They denied everything, and a new execution date was set, May 20th, 2025. Now, as we wait for that date to arrive, we are left to ponder, will justice finally be served? The fate of James Worley appears to be sealed, but the deeper question of justice for Sierah Joughin still hangs in the balance. Will the final execution bring closure to her family and the community, or will it leave more questions than answers? As we continue to watch this story unfold, we hold on to hope that justice will prevail, not just in the form of retribution, but as a healing force for all affected. We must wait to see if Worley gets the fate he deserves, and if Sierah and her loved ones will finally see the justice they've been longing for. To sum up the whole happenings, the story of James Worley and the tragic fate of Sierah Joughin has left an indelible mark on the community and all who followed the case. The courtroom battles, the heart-wrenching testimonies, and the relentless pursuit of justice have painted a vivid picture of the lengths to which the legal system will go to seek accountability. As Worley awaits his fate on death row, the echoes of the crimes linger, reminding us of the fragility of safety and the enduring strength of a community that rallied together in the face of unspeakable evil. This story, though difficult, is a testament to the resilience of those who seek justice and a somber reflection on the work that remains in understanding and preventing such tragedies. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video about a case that has tested the boundaries of law, morality, and human endurance. If you found this case insightful and want to stay updated with more stories like this, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us keep bringing these important stories to light. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below, and thank you again for watching. We appreciate your encouragement and look forward to bringing you more compelling content in the future.